Hey Rustations, welcome back to another video in the Rustlings series. Here I'm going through this GitHub project that's very helpful, very useful. Thank you to the folks who compiled this GitHub project called Rustlings. You can look it up on GitHub. I am walking through all of the exercises on it step by step with you so you could see how frustrated I get and what I'm learning along the way. In the prior videos, I have gone through other points and other pieces of this project, but I know where I am now by running essentially the tests and getting up, I guess, trying to compile this thing. And now I see that I'm on exercises, macros 1. That's where this is failing, so that's where I'm going to dive in. Stick around and let's do some Rust. All right, so here I am in macros 1. Make me compile. That's the name of the game in Rustlings. So let's see, macro rules. My macro, empty parentheses yields, I guess, print line. Check out my macro, and then I call my macro. So I don't know. I've never experienced macros. I don't know what they are in Rust. So let's scroll down and get some hints. When you call macro, you need to add something special compared to inside a regular function call. If you're stuck, take a look at what's inside my macro. Okay, so what's inside my macro is just this thing. So I'm going to have to phone a friend and figure out how to call macros in Rust. Okay, actually, what's nice about Rustlings is, and Rust, I suppose, as a language, is that it tells you right in the debugging statement about like what some of the issues might be. So here it says use a bang to invoke my macro. So I guess just add a bang operator there, and then let's see. Okay, my macro is 1, so you need a bang operator when calling macros. So let's look at my macros 2. Let's see. So let's look at the debugging issue first. Have you added the macro use on the module import? Okay, so it says, let's see, cannot find macro in this scope. So I suppose I need to import it. It looks like I haven't imported the macro itself. Rust again is giving me some hints about what I can do. So it looks like I need to import macro use on the module import. So I'd imagine it's macro use. Well, let's see what that does. It probably will give me an error that doesn't know which macro I'm gonna bring in. So macro use, let's say my macro. This is a guess about the language. Okay, I'm gonna have to read a little bit. Let's see, scoping compared to other constructs. Let's see, they happen in single depth first lexical order traversal of a crate source. So a macro defined at the module scope is visible to any subsequent code in the same module, which includes a body of any subsequent child mod items. If you want to use your macro, which is defined in a different module, you need to use macro use attribute before using the macro. Let's say our macros are defined in module macros and we'd like to use them inside module client. This is required module definition order. Okay, so I need to define this thing down here. So this macro is defined in mod macros, I guess. Need a colon. Making every error with macros. Macros RS, macros mod. Macros 1.rs. How about that? Okay, so I tried a bunch of different things there and eventually found that you need to import from, I guess, the file name where the macro is defined. So that's how we're going to use macros in that instance. So now on to macros 3. So macros 3 cannot find my macro in this scope. Okay, so it looks like we're going to have to use macro use again. And then my macro. Oh, well, this is importing. I see. So it looks like we're redefining a macro without taking the macro out of the module. Scroll down for hints. So we have another name. In order to use a macro outside of its module, you need to do something special to the module to lift the macro out into its parent, okay? The same trick also works on extern crate statements for crates that have exported macros, if you've seen any of those around. Okay, I'm not sure what this means. So, macros 3, my macro. Okay, so in the prior one, macros 1, that's what we did to bring this in. Expected item. So in 2, we said macro use mod macros 1. Module import. Expected item. External crate. Macro export. Function. Oh, I see. Do I have to do that? So it's redefining the macro. Okay, so I think what happened here is that I had this macro define my macro. So I'm not going to import it from the first one like I did. I'm redefining this. I have to export this macro so it's can be used in the scope of this function. But what's interesting is, okay, so this macro in the first one was defined differently. So this is mod macros. Okay, so this is creating a module macros, and so we have to export my macro so it can be used within this function. Okay, I see. And so we do macro export. And now we're on macros 4. It's just ensuring that you have the right scope for your function, so you know which functions can use what where. It's probably not a great pattern to redefine the names of functions in different places because we have a my macros in another place, but we're being deliberate about which my macro can be exported and used in different places. So we're not going to be doing this by accident and using the wrong my macro function. This happens all the time where you have this slightly different functions. They're named the same thing and they're used different places. You get weird output and debugging it is awful. So let's look at macros 4. Okay, let's look at the error. No rules expected this token in macro call. No rules expected the token parenthesis in macro call. I think I'm going to need a hint. Val expression yields print line. No rules expected this token in macro call. You only need to add a single character to make this compile. Okay, the way macros are written, it wants to see something between each macro arm so it can separate them. I don't know what a macro arm is. Let's look for the word arm here. What does it want between each arm? It wants a semicolon, probably. When in doubt, it wants a semicolon. Okay, so it wants to evaluate this function first completely, and then that's one arm, and this is the second arm. So that's what macros want. Okay, so let's go back to the top. This is the Readme Macros. Rust macro system is very powerful, but also kind of different to wrap your head around. We're not going to teach you how to write your own fully featured modules. Instead, we'll show you how to use and create them. So there's a little book of Rust macros. This looks pretty interesting to read up on. We just did the exercises first, but I'd probably want to check this out. I imagine these things are really powerful. Actually, across all languages, whenever I run into the word macros, I know that it's going to be pretty powerful. I did SAS macros for a while, and those were pretty useful. So check back in. I guess we're going to go back into tests in the next video, and we're just going to keep plugging along. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking and subscribing, and good luck on your Rust journey.